Thank you so much for watching this video. Today we are going to discuss about ethics in research, which is very, very important, especially in today's world. People are really concerned about how are you carrying out your research. Are you just concerned about getting information? You get data from participants, and that is all. You don't care about them. You don't care about how you leave them. How even some of the questions that you're likely to ask them, how do you leave them after that? So that is why we have to think about ethics. We have also to think about, under ethics, we think about respect, we think about honesty, we think about integrity. Very, very important. So when you're thinking about ethics, there are several issues that come into play. You're thinking about professionalism. You're thinking about what values do you carry along as you are doing your research. And then you're thinking about, in the process of you gathering data, do you encourage voluntary participation or are you coercing your participants to give you data? Do they have informed consent? Are you thinking about not harming any participant through even the questions that you are asking them? Issues to do with privacy, anonymity, and confidentiality, they come into play. So basically, ethics are norms or standards of behavior that guide moral choices about our behavior and our relationship with other people. So what is your behavior? How do you relate to other people? What are their norms that you carry along with you? The goal of ethics in research is to ensure that no one is harmed or suffers adverse consequences from your research activities. That is why it is very, very important for you to consider ethics when you're carrying out data, so that nobody suffers any kind of a consequence, or rather an adverse consequence when you are doing your research. Very, very important to think about that participant, about that person who is giving you the information. And what comes into mind are about 5 things: protecting the rights of the participant or the subject, the person who has voluntarily agreed to give you information concerning what you're researching on. Then you are also supposed to think about the sponsors or the clients who have requested you to do a research for them. Because when you become a research specialist, you can be consulted on consultancy services to carry out a research to a particular company or a group of people or an organization. You do it on their behalf. So what do you do in that space? Then issues of following ethical standards when designing research. So when you're writing, especially when you're writing your methodology, there are things that you need to think about. It should actually be written well. As one of the ways of following ethics in research, the methodology should always be right. And then also protecting the safety of the research and the research team, basically to do with your safety and ensure that the research team follows the right design. When you are doing the research, you should ensure that the team that you are having are also aware of what you are doing, and they're also willing to follow the design that you have actually written down. So when we think about ethical treatment of participants, we're actually thinking about the do not harm issue. We are thinking about explaining the study benefits to the participants. We are also thinking about the rights and the protection of the participants, and also informed consent. And what do we mean by this? That you are carrying that research in such a manner that the respondent or the participant or the subject does not suffer any physical harm, any discomfort, any kind of a pain, any kind of an embarrassment or loss of privacy. So you are trying as much as possible to collect this information, but ensuring that you don't harm the participant or the subject. And so there are things that you should actually supposed to safeguard against when you are doing, when you want to ensure that the participants are treated ethically. 1, you're supposed to explain the study benefits to the participant. What is it that they are likely to gain from the study? And if there are no benefits, please declare from the word go and avoid issues to do with deception. Number 2, obtain informed consent from the participants. Make sure that the person or you're collecting data from, or the persons you're collecting data from, have actually voluntarily agreed to participate in your data. Do not coerce people. Do not take advantage of people who actually do not understand what you want. And in some cases, especially when you're dealing with children, anybody who is less than 18 years old cannot give you consent. So you actually need to work with, let's say, a parent, a teacher, because those are the people who can only give you consent. Then explain the respondent's right and protection. How are you going to protect the rights of the respondent, and how are you going to protect them? Because remember, some information could be very sensitive. Some information could cause harm in terms of, psychologically or emotionally. Maybe you're reminding people about something that happened. Let's say you're investigating about FGM, you're investigating about a rape case, you are investigating about, the difficult or misfortunes that people have gone through. It is good for you to know after this, how do I handle this person? Because it's like I'm reminding them of what has happened. What care do you take after? And that is why some people will actually go to collect data with accompanied by counselors or psychologists, so that immediately after you are through, then you can be able to talk to these people. Some sort of a debriefing, so that you're able to leave them in a better place than you actually found them. And then rights to privacy. It is very, very important for you to ensure that this person, the information they have given you is actually protected. You want to handle it with a lot of care. You want to ensure that, you don't just leave it on top of a table, or somebody has given you a bunch of questionnaires and you just leave them in a cabinet and it's not even lockable, so that somebody is able to go back and find out, oh, so-and-so is the one who gave out this information. Remember, some of the researches that we do are likely to land us into trouble as much as we are looking for solutions. So it is important for you to be able to assure this person that, they are safe. And some of the things that we do to assure them that they are safe is to indicate, or if somebody has to fill a certain kind of a questionnaire, it is good for them not to give their particulars, the names, ID numbers, cell phone numbers, email addresses. Leave that out, because that is the way somebody can be able to track somebody back and be able to know so-and-so give out this information. So ensure that as much as you can, you protect that information. And where somebody must give out that information, then make sure that that information can only, or rather that information is very well secured, and it can only be shared with the people who actually need it. And every other person does not have access to it. So data instruments can be kept under lock and key. Ensure that if you're doing your research and actually people are filling the information through the website, it's good to disable those links so that somebody doesn't go back and find out so-and-so is the one who was giving out this information. So any identifiable information, names, cell phone numbers, any identifiable information, please make sure that you don't expose it, because somebody can be able to go back to it. So they have a right to their privacy, and it is good that you guarantee them that this information you have given me will be used for this purpose and it will not be exposed. And that way you're able to safeguard against that. Then when it comes to the ethics and the sponsor or the client, when you talk about sponsor and the client, we basically mean that person who has given you some consultancy job to do on their behalf. because maybe you are a research specialist. So firms or organizations will hire research specialists to do a particular kind of research so that they are able to continue with their work, because some of them maybe do not have a research department, or some of them not have so many workers who can be released to do research. So they hire you. So the person who has given you this job, or who has hired you, is a client or the sponsor. Now, what we are saying here, that it is important for you and the client who has given you the job to put the following in mind: issues of confidentiality, because you would not want to go and exposing your client. Oh, this and this company is actually going down. Actually, they have even hired me to do this research for them. They want to see how they can revive themselves. They are not doing well. It's good for you to be confidential. Know the information that you can give to the participant, and know which one you cannot be able to give to the participant. Then they have a right to quality research. And what do we mean by quality research? By here we mean, just a moment. By here we mean that the client who has given you this assignment expects quality and nothing but quality. We have had cases, especially in when you're dealing with when you're working on a consultancy, somebody who does not actually go to collect data. Instead, what they normally do, they go sit somewhere in an office or in a very big hotel, and they just fill questionnaires without necessarily going to the field. Maybe they're expected to go to all the 47 counties in our country to collect data, but they don't do that. They just sit somewhere and just fill the questionnaires, and they just come and convince you that they have a bunch of questionnaires and that they were filled by the participants. That is not quality research. And I want to say that's why we're in this class today, so that in case you take up a job or you'll be doing research consultancy, it is important for you to do the research the way it's supposed to be done. If you are supposed to go to the field, you actually go to the field itself. I know some of the places that you collect data are very remote, but somebody has funded, your client has already funded you. So they have rights to quality research. And even when you're analyzing, there are some people who will go to analyze data and they want it to come out in a particular way. But that is not a lie. That is not the truth. That is actually deception. So it should actually be analyzed the way it is. And then also, we talk about sponsors' ethics. What do we mean by sponsors' ethics? That they also need to know that there is what is guiding you as a researcher. There's what you can do and there's what you cannot do. For example, a client cannot expect you to violate the participant's right in order to collect data. It is not right for them to do that. So they must know that even as you're going to collect data, you have some guidelines, and there are some ethical standards that you must follow. And when you follow them, then you're able to come up with good research. And for example, one of the things that you need to guard against is making sure that the client does not, they don't force you to do something that is not right. You should be able to think about it. Any unethical behavior is highly discouraged. So we are saying occasionally, research specialists may be asked by sponsors to participate in unethical behavior. Compliance by the researcher would be a breach of ethical standards. So some examples to be avoided are violating the respondent confidentiality, like I'd mentioned. You're not supposed to violate the respondent confidentiality. Another one is changing data or creating false data to meet a desired objective. That is very wrong. Changing presentations or interpretations, again, that is very wrong. Omitting sections of data analysis and conclusions, that is also very wrong. Then making recommendations beyond the scope of the data. Let's say you are collecting data for some organization in Nairobi. When you're going to make those conclusions and recommendations, Do not generalize it to the organizations in Kisumu because that is beyond the scope. You only collected data in Nairobi. And so you can only be able to recommend and analyze and give your presentation as far as Nairobi County is concerned. But you cannot go beyond the scope and talk about other counties. You're supposed to be very, very careful. And so what we are required to do, especially when you are a consultant, is you educate the sponsor on the purpose of the research. You explain to them your role. I am coming to do this and this job, and these are unethical behavior that I cannot participate in, and these are the guidelines that are guiding me as I go to do research. Then also explain to them how distorting that information, would lead to future problems, even for you as a researcher, because remember, your research is authorized. For example, in this country, we are authorized by NACOSTI. So it is important for your sponsor or client to know that actually you have been authorized to carry out research. And should something go wrong, then somebody will come for you. Then also, in case you feel that you are not working well with your client, it's good for you to terminate it. Rather than engage in an ethical behavior, terminate that relationship as soon as you can. Then lastly, we want to look at researchers and the team members. When you are going out as a team to collect data, what is it that you need to put in your mind? So we're saying researchers have an ethical responsibility to their team's safety as well as their own, and they also should protect the anonymity of both the sponsor and the respondent. So if you're going out as a team, you as the head of that research, and that is why you're in this class today, you are supposed to ensure that your team is safe. Why am I talking about safety? Because some of the places that you are likely to go and collect data, you may find them not safe. Maybe it is an electioneering period, and there are wars between one county and the other. How safe are you? Or think about some counties in Kenya where you are supposed to go and collect data, for example, about FGM. Some people may be against it, some people may be for it. The question is, how safe are you? If again you are going to collect data and you realize that a place, you realize that there was violence in such a place, and you're supposed to go and collect data at that particular time, again, how safe are you? So think about safety first. So ensuring that safety of all those who are involved in research, that is very, very important. And what we are saying is it is a researcher's responsibility to design a project so the safety of all team members in the research is protected. And what we are saying that some urban areas and undeveloped rural areas could be unsafe for research assistance. And that is why you actually find when people are going to collect data in a particular area, they actually ask even for protection from the government. They go to such a place even with policemen and policewomen. So it is unethical to require staff to enter into an environment where they feel physically threatened. So researchers who are insensitive to these concerns face both research and legal risks. So please ensure that if you're going out as a team, that your safety is guaranteed as much as possible. Then the ethical behavior of the team members. Again, even if you are working as a team, remember that each team member should comply to the ethical standards from the beginning to the end. So there's no unethical behavior that can be entertained. So we are saying that assistants are expected to carry out the sampling, plan interview, observe respondents without bias, and recording all the information accurately. There are some research team members who, will not even want to go to the field. You have sent them to a particular place, but they decide they don't want to go that far. So as you get your research assistants and your team together, they must educate them, and they must know that you need to collect information without bias, and you also need to accurately record all the data. So any unethical behavior, like, just filling, a questionnaire for the participants, forcing them to write some answers down, you know that is unethical. So the behavior of the assistants is under the direct control of the responsible researcher. Who are you? Because you're in this class today and you have learned. So supervise them and train them well so that when they go to the field, then they are able to do the right thing. It's also good for you to educate them on how to protect the confidentiality of the privacy of the participants. So researchers and assistants are supposed to protect the confidentiality of the sponsors' information and also the anonymity of the respondents. Remember, what the sponsor or the client is interested with is the information. The information. That is what they're interested with. That is what will help them make the decisions and the solutions they have. So you as a researcher, you have a role to protect the client and you have a role to protect the respondents so that you ensure that none of them suffers harm because of the research you are carrying out. So each researcher handling data should be required to sign a confidentiality and a non-disclosure statement. So anybody in your team who is, handling research data, ensure that they sign a confidentiality form or an undisclosure statement. This is meaning that they're not going to disclose the information that they have had, that they have learned from the field to other people because it's supposed to be confidential. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you have enjoyed this class. Asante.